You are welcome today once again to Den of Knowledge. Remember, Basic 3 English language class. I remember Boniface Chima Kingsley. Of course, today we'll be talking about concept of print. Concept of print. Concept of what? Print. Yes, this particular concept of print, we did it when you were in your primary 2 class. Yes, we are going to look at another aspect of it. I told you initially that concept of print is all about the book you read. It's all about how it's being produced, how it's being made, so that you can identify some important items on those books. Now, we are going to look at another thing we never talked about. Of course, I told you that a print or a book, as I told you can call it, must have a title. Yes, it must have a title. It must have a cover page, back page, author, or authors, depending. Then it must have pictures and text, which I told you that the text is made of words. It's made of words. Now look at that one, or get a printed book around you. As you look at my screen, you look at your own, so that you can compare them and see that they are the same. You can compare them and see that they are what? The same. Now what am I saying? Look, watch it very closely and see. Now you must know that a printed book must have some other things which involve illustration. Illustrations are things that are being used to create understanding. A printed book that doesn't have illustration will make the readers to find it difficult to understand it. That is why, especially the textbooks you use, you see some illustrations there, giving you illustration of this, and it aids explanation. It makes you to understand it what better. It makes you to understand it what better. That's why it must have illustration. It must have margins. Now margins, if you look at that your book, over here, look at the screen, you see it. You see that it has margin. With a book that doesn't have margin, or we say a print that doesn't have margin, you won't know where to start, you won't even know where to stop. It's just like writing something without punctuation mark. So a book must have margin. Why it's very important is to help you understand the particular place to start and then where to stop. That is why it must have a margin. Now, a book must have pictures and text, just like I told you before. It must have pictures and what? Text. Now let's look at other forms of what? Other forms of print. Other forms of what? Print. We are going to look at other forms of print. Other forms of print. Now, other forms of print. There are some other, apart from your textbook, there are some other printed materials that are used to circulate information. To do what? To pass out information to readers. Those other ones are, number one, we have the newspaper. We have the newspaper. It's like a broad book, that a broad pieces of books joined together that is used to, yes, a broad book put together that is used to pass on information or news about the happenings in our society. It's a broad book, a broad piece of book that is used to pass out information that is happening on things that are happening in our society, on things that are happening in our societies. Now, Having known this, mind you, anything that is called newspaper must have something as our textbook. What are those? It must have text and it must have pictures. Remember, it must have text and it must have what? It must have what? Pictures. Alright, we still have other ones like we have the journals, and we have the magazines, journals, magazines, and we have the reference book. These are some books that are made of print. And mind you, no matter the one you call it, it must have all these things I mentioned. Number one, I mentioned text, I mentioned pictures, I mentioned illustration, I mentioned merging. It must have all this. And remember, author's name must be involved. Now look at, you see journals. Over there, you see journals. This is how it looks. Yes, journals are books that are used by organizations. They are used by what? Organizations to make sure that they keep on their day-to-day events. They record their day-to-day events. You remember, any organization without journals, we find it difficult to remember what they did before. So they will use journal to write out their events so that once they want to remember things they did before, they can go to their journal, search through it, and see what they did before. Magazines. Magazines is just like a newspaper, but it is smaller than a newspaper. It is exactly like a newspaper, but it's smaller. And it's then what? Thicker. It's smaller and it's what? Thicker. Now, magazine is used to circulate a specific information. Magazine can be, unlike newspaper. Newspaper is everything that happens in our society. Newspaper captures it. But magazine can be about a school, like your school may have a magazine. You call it school magazine. Maybe a religion, like your own religion, may have what? A magazine. Alright? Or it can be an organization. My organization can have what? A magazine. It is just for me. But my organization cannot have a newspaper. My school cannot have a newspaper. My religion cannot have a newspaper. Because newspaper is for everything that is happening in our day-to-day event. But mind you, no matter the one you call it, newspaper, journal, magazine, or you call it reference book. Reference book is one that we use individually. We use them both. They are printed material that we use on our own individually. Okay? Or we use it to mark out some important things that we do. Call it newspaper, call it journals, call it magazines, call it reference book, whichever one you call it, make sure you identify all those things I told you about the printed book, just as you can see all of them over there at the screen. You find out that they have pictures, they have text, they have illustrations, they have covers, both front and back covers. And then the funniest thing is that they are well designed. That's the last one. They are well designed. Now, any printed book must be well designed. Yes, any printed book must be well designed. If it is not designed, people will not buy it. People buy what they see and what looks nice to their eyes. So they look at what is nice at sight. Then it is good, very important, that you identify all this whenever you get a printed book. Learn how to read what is written on the printed book, because that is the information you need. Alright, I hope you enjoy this class. I'm going to see you next time, same place, Den of Knowledge. Stay tuned.